we are mandated by the Constitution, Article 87(1) and 2B, to, among other things, advise the President on matters relating to planning, policy, and strategy, and to formulate proposals for the development of the resource potential and comparative advantage of the different districts of our country. And so, Mr. President, in pursuance of this mandate, we decided to work on a long-term plan. And that's what we've mainly been doing over the past couple of years, apart from the time that we took off to help work on the coordinated program. In doing so, Mr. President, we were spurred by a number of imperatives. One of them is just the inexorable development of technology. Who knows? By the next 40 years, the onset and prodigious development of robotry, different sources of energy, life would have changed tremendously. Our population would have doubled from the, 28.9 million we now have to a doubling, 58 million plus. We can't possibly wait and see things happen. We must anticipate the implications of these inexorable developments on our lives, the lives of our people, on our life as a nation. And so, Mr. President, we started working on this long-term plan, spurred by these obvious imperatives. And the plan is set around 5 goals that overlap pretty much with your own vision, Mr. President. And central to the plan is the work we've done on the development of infrastructure. It's very critical to our development as a nation. Infrastructure, by the way, including the development of the construction industry, especially, and the development of supporting logistics, without which you can't really develop infrastructure properly. We will be presenting to you shortly the documents evidencing the plan, its highlights, and the infrastructure framework itself. In launching the plan, Mr. President, we opted to engage as large a cross-section of our people as possible, to make the plan not the product of brilliant technical people and intellectuals working in isolation from the people. On the contrary, from the very beginning, we appreciated that in order for the plan to gain legitimacy, we needed to consult a wide cross-section of our people. And therefore, we launched it at the Accra Conference Center at a ceremony that was both somber and festive. And then, after that, consulted with a wide range of people, of stakeholders, including preeminently all the political parties, the House of Chiefs, the regional Houses of Chiefs, former leading statesmen, and just about everybody, including even the cross-section of our handicapped people and the youth. Following these consultations, we then recongregated in Accra and started the urgent work of collating views and doing the technical work, including the modeling of our national economy and the sector work that needed to be done. Mr. President, the idea of launching a long-term plan has not been without its controversy. There were some who felt that perhaps the very idea of a plan was troublesome, deterred, no doubt, by the continuing perceptions that people have of the Ghost Plan at the onset of the Soviet Union, forgetting, Mr. President, that the distinction between these two worldviews, between capitalism, properly so-called, socialism, so-called, that this line of distinction has become fainter and fainter with time. The most flourishing stock exchanges today are to be found not just in New York, but in Beijing and in Moscow. And who knows, Mr. President, perhaps if Lenin hadn't died, even the shape of communism would have been spared the agonies that came with Stalin. But, Mr. President, we sought to give the plan a large body of national consensus. Among the stakeholders we consulted included Parliament, where I have to say we obtained a tremendous amount of real guidance from a number of colleagues in Parliament who themselves were professional planners, including at the time the minority leader who now is the majority leader, and himself a professional planner. The 40-year horizon seems long, but, Mr. President, it was just the symbolism that for us mattered. In 40 years, Ghana would have attained the age of 100. So we wanted to give ourselves the pleasure of anticipating, of knowing what everybody wanted to see Ghana look like and be like at 100. So it wasn't some ideological preoccupation that let us choose 40. We can make it 10, 15, 20. But for us, the symbolism of the maturation of our nation at that time, we thought was good guidance. And so, Mr. President, we believe that we are signaling, hopefully, a new momentum. Another concern that many people had was the fact that perhaps we were deigning to shackle successive governments and political parties with a framework, a policy framework that they couldn't do anything about. Far from it, Mr. President, we have neither the legal authority or the political will to do so. In forging the plan, we aim only to establish a long-term horizon and the footsteps that we might take to reach these long-term goals. We recognize that we are a multi-party democracy and that over the 40 years, there will be at least 10 successive tenures. That each political party will be mandated and will be required to pursue its own agenda on which it was elected. And so we see the 40 years as being punctuated by a series of medium-term plans. And we also noted that in every 10 years, many things may very well have happened. Who knows? Our oil find may very well have quadrupled. Our resource envelope may very well suddenly have expanded. And so every 10 years, we expect Parliament to revisit the fundamental objectives and resource envelope assumptions and so on of the plan and make changes accordingly. But changes that will be dictated, hopefully, by very fundamental changes that have taken place in our economy and not fleeting, transitory changes. And so we believe that the plan will enable us both to forge the continuity of development planning that has enabled countries that started with us to go so far ahead of us, and at the same time, the flexibility that we must build into our economic development processes to allow different political parties to pursue their agendas. So, Mr. President, this is what we have sought to do. In Goal 5, in which we talk about Ghana's role in international affairs, I think, Mr. President, you'll see sentiment in there that overlaps very much with yours. Your vision about Ghana beyond aid. I think you will see all that there. And you will also see we have sought to ensure that the plan echoes as much as we know of the different orientations of our political parties. And so, Mr. President, I'd like to, at this stage, present to you the documents of the plan, including one, the National Long-Term Plan itself, and a summary of its highlights, and then, crucially, the infrastructure plan and its highlights. And finally, Mr. President, a special transport infrastructure framework. We intend to have frameworks covering about 8 other sectors, including sanitation and energy and all that. We haven't quite had the time to do all 8 of them. And finally, this is work in progress, Mr. President. We can't deign to suggest that we've written everything. We have put the plan documents in as close to completion as possible. But we recognize that it may require further review, further work, and we are happy as a group to help in any way we can to bring to complete such a review if necessary. And now, our work having been done, Mr. President, this was the most important part of our mission. We, as a commission, chaired by me, Mr. President, would like to collectively, Mr. President, stand down, bring our tenure as a commission to a close. Not so much because any law or statute or constitution requires us to, but in order to give you, Mr. President, the opportunity to recompose, recast the commission in accordance with your own vision and priorities, as well, Mr. President, as the supreme interest of our country. I thank you, Mr. President, and would now like to present to you the long-term plan.
So What you're watching on the screens right now is in fact, the chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Akufo-Addo, presenting the 40-year development plan to President Akufo-Addo. Of course, he's been briefing the president on some of what is actually contained in the 40-year development plan and the works that they've done so far. He talks about the criticisms that characterize the 40-year development plan. Of course, we can go back to the banquet hall shortly as the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, prepares to address us after receiving that 40-year development plan. The National Development Planning Commission is currently there, and they've talked about infrastructural development and that were set out for the 40-year development plan. Of course, the controversies that characterize the 40-year development plan, with that, some raising concerns about it, the duration itself, and why it couldn't be 14 or 15, considering that a number of governments will come and go. Also, several consultations, according to them, were done, and then technical work, which is the moduling of the economy, was also done. Of course, the long-term development plan has also not been without controversy, like I said earlier. And then the president has received the whole document. It's quite a bulky document. He's received it, and they say they couldn't adopt a wait-and-see attitude as the commission, hence the work that they did. We can go back to the banquet hall now as the president addresses the National Development Planning Commission.
And highways, transport, Secretary to the Cabinet, Secretary to the President, the Chairperson, Director General, and members of the National Development Planning Commission, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all welcome you all warmly to the seat of the presidency of our country for this important meeting. Over the last 8 months, the length of my stay in office, I've met on a few occasions with the chairperson and the Director General of the Commission, who have briefed me about the progress of work on the draft long-term National Development Plan. I know it has been an arduous task, which has required extensive consultations, substantial reviews, and consensus building, and you have taken great pains to complete it. Ghana is very grateful to you. And I hope that the rest of you will not mind if I single out in particular my old friend and contemporary from our undergraduate days at Legon, Dr. Akufo-Addo. I didn't know how to a traditional apparel as well, but he continues to be Akufo-Addo, who continues to give such distinguished service to our nation. Like me, he's not done yet. Kwesi, you're welcome, and now you go. And I'm happy that today, both of us who began our youth as fellow Marxists are united in our support of the market economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the long-term path of our nation's development is one that has to concern us all, politicians and citizenry alike. This year, we celebrated our 60th independence from British colonial rule. In comparison to the likes of Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia, countries which gained their independence around the same time as we did, it is evident that we should be much further along in our national life than we currently are. We must therefore make rapid progress and do things to ensure that we achieve it. I've followed the discussions on the country's long-term national development plan and have heard the concerns that have been raised. Firstly, there are some who question the very essence of planning. They do not see any purpose or value in planning and believe that everything should be left to the free workings of the market. However, if as individuals we plan our own lives to achieve the best outcomes for ourselves, why should a nation of more than 27 million people not do likewise, even within the context of a market economy? Secondly, another group does not contest the relevance of planning for national development, but takes issue with the time frame. Some would want such a plan to span the customary 4 years we've always had. Some would prefer 10 years, and others would say 40 years. Thirdly, then there are those who raise concerns about the binding nature of a long-term plan. Some view this plan as the best chance to commit present and future leaders to the development agenda. Others would want nothing of a long term because it could limit the degree of freedom to operate within the context of their manifestos and fulfilling their commitments and promises to the electorate. Indeed, many politicians fall into this category. Yet there may be more voices who have not yet been heard. They too may express a different point of view, which they may want to share with us. So firstly, how certain are we that these different, perhaps dissenting views on the merit of having a long-term national development plan have embraced the principle of the long-term planning? And are they now ready to accept the plan that is being submitted today? Secondly, and for the next stage of the work, what do you envisage to be some potential challenges we must tackle to secure the needed consensus on the content of the proposed plan? As government, we are almost done with the coordinated program of economic and social development policies, which the Constitution in Article 36, Clause 5, requires the President of the Republic to submit to Parliament within the first 2 years of his administration. This time, we have worked to ensure it is completed within the first year of my tenure. Cabinet has approved it for submission to Parliament. That will happen in the next session of Parliament that begins next week. It is my hope and expectation that the issues of concern, which were highlighted in the NPP manifesto and elaborated in the coordinated program, are also in consonance with the long-term plan. I agree with the chairperson of the Commission that the draft long-term national plan you are submitting is well within the constitutional remit that the Constitution of the Republic has defined for the operation of this constitutional body, the National Development Planning Commission. Without preempting the contents of the plan, I should state some of my own aspirations. Firstly, that we will have a strong, buoyant economy that will provide decent jobs for all, and that our school leavers from secondary and university will not spend an inordinate amount of time as they do now to get a job or create one for themselves and for others. Secondly, that being a Ghanaian will be associated with tangible benefits such as free basic education, a good health care system, the rule of law, and security in the country. Thirdly, that reciprocally, citizens will exude levels of discipline and professionalism that engender efficiency in the management of our institutions and the development of our society. Fourthly, that our infrastructure effectively supports our development with the range of options in road, rail, air, and water, forming a complex network across the entire country. Fifthly, that we will be mindful of our planet, the Earth, and its global citizens, ensure that we act in a manner to guarantee its health and survival. Sixthly, that our institutions, public and private, function as expected and consciously work to the satisfaction of citizens. And seventh, that Ghana is fully engaged in efforts towards regional and continental integration. I can fully appreciate that achieving all these will take a lot of planning and efficiency in orchestrating actions and programs, and also a reasonable length of time to conclude the path that we charter. We must figure out together with all the major stakeholders how we can achieve this. And I'm reassured that these aspirations meet substantially those of the plan you are submitting, that we all agree that we must build a Ghana beyond aid. One thing is certain: we must not and cannot fail in taking up this journey. We need to seek out those who are not yet convinced and bring them on board. And we need to have people to champion the different aspects of the plan, in particular the key milestones. We must figure how we sustain the interest of key constituents, especially the youth, who will be at the helm of affairs in the not-too-distant future. The plan you are submitting presents my government and subsequent governments with a daunting task, not so much the implementation, but to stay on track and ensure that we have the desired outcome. We must be able to monitor our progress and redirect our path when we seem to be deviating from them. On behalf of the people of Ghana, my government, and on my own behalf, I express my sincere gratitude to you, Chairperson, for the policy direction you provided, and to you, the Director General, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, for the organizational and technical leadership that got this document out. From the little I know of the operations of the Commission, I'm aware that each and every one of you, the members of the Commission, have made significant input into this document. Your experience and knowledge have no doubt been brought to bear in the drafting of the document. I wish again to thank you all for the contribution you have made. As we receive this document, my team will now continue the work from here and subject it to careful review, with the expectation that any angles that were missed and any additional milestones will be defined. I trust we can count on your support for the long haul, well beyond the short to medium term. And let me, before concluding, express my sincere appreciation for the collective determination you have made, without the compulsion of law, to submit your collective resignation, to allow the principle of new king, new law to operate. It is a high mark of high patriotism, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you, and may God bless us all in our homeland, Ghana, and make her great and strong.
So that was President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo addressing the National Development Planning Commission as they presented the draft 40-year development plan to him. It's profound. I'm sure you heard the President say that indeed members of the old National Development Planning Commission should tender in their resignations for the constitution of a new one, and he's asking all the members to be able to step down so that the new king can implement its new laws. And then he's been commending the Commission also for the work they've done so far concerning the 40-year development plan, and of course its binding nature of the long-term development plan is some of the concerns and the controversies that was generated. He's also talking about that on how it's binding on future government and its limits of freedoms of such. He also stated that some of his issues that he would not want to preempt the 40-year development plan, but of course the contents of it and what he's hoping that he will be able to achieve in the area of economy, infrastructure, and also considering planet Earth. He says it should be considered also satisfaction of citizens in that area, and that Ghana should be fully engaged in regional integration is what he's also looking forward to and hoping that will be contained in the 40-year development plan. Of course, it's a daunting task, but he's prepared to be able to implement it to its fullest, and also reiterating the fact that Ghana must be built beyond aid. President Akufo-Addo, speaking to the National Development Planning Commission members at the banquet hall. Of course, he would also be he's also received a wafu, the cup that was presented to us to Ghana. He received it a while ago.